Hello and welcome to Vikas Mudra channel. I am Hari Kumar with Insights. When Kerala Finance Minister K. N. Balagopal presented his second budget in the State Assembly on March 11, there was not much protest from the opposition United Democratic Front. During the 2.5-hour long, almost banal speech of the Finance Minister, the response of the opposition was a stoic silence. The reason for the muted response of the opposition could be the fact that there were not many new tax proposals to burden the common man in the budget. However, outside the House, the response was mixed. While the supporters of government praised the budget for focusing on the development of Kerala economy as a knowledge-based economy, the opposition was strident in its criticism. The crux of the allegations of the opposition was the government was pushing the state into a debt trap. This has been a refrain of the opposition for the last few years. The opposition has been pointing out at the huge debt burden of Kerala. According to the current budget, the total debt of Kerala is almost 3.27 lakh crore Indian rupees. This comes to around, say, 37.3% of the gross state domestic product or GSDP. So, is this itself a reason for worry? Is this a sin? Are there any other factors which point towards the pathetic state of affairs in the Kerala economy? Let us examine. I think that a huge burden, a huge debt is not in itself a sin. But the problem is, what are you doing with a huge debt? We need not compare the debt of a country or a state with the debt of a household. So, in our traditional view, household debt is something which is almost a sin in our country. But the fact is that for a country or a state, there is no country on earth. I mean, perhaps there may be countries like Gulf countries which had surplus budget. Almost all other countries have deficit budgets, and all of them take debt also. So, is the debt in it means that debt in itself is not a great sin. But the problem is what you do with borrowed money. So that is the important thing. So here there is a problem with Kerala. So for in the case of Kerala, the capital expenditure, that is creating assets which could give us returns, is less than 10% of our total expenditure. The major part of the state expenditure, that comes to around, say, 53% of the state expenditure, goes to paying salaries, paying pension, and a repayment of interest, paying interest for the loans. So this is a very difficult aspect. So we are spending a major part of our borrowed money for revenue expenses, which is not at all a welcome trend. So in this aspect, the Kerala's debt burden will lead to an economic crisis for the state. But I think the most important pointers which the statistics in budget as well as the economic review gives is two aspects. One is the failure of the state government. State government means its bureaucracy to spend the money earmarked for major projects. So that is, unspent money is one of the major causes of worry. The second thing is the inability of the state to meet targets of tax collection. Both these are connected to the governance, and they show the lethargy of the state bureaucracy also. Let us check the numbers. So, during the last few years, Kerala has been repeatedly battered by natural calamities. In 2018 and 2019, the state faced consecutive floods, and in fact, both floods devastated not only the geography of the state but the economy of the state also. And the state government had earmarked sums in budget for rebuilding the state. What is the position of the Rebuild Kerala project? So we need to check that. So let us check. Uh, in the Kerala budget last year, for Rebuild Kerala, around 1,830 crores were earmarked, out of which just rupees 388 crore was spent. So this is totally unpardonable. This is one of the most important signs that the state governance is not up to the mark. Then again, if you look at other numbers, uh, the state government earmarked 7,280 crore for local self-government institutions, out of which just 51% was spent. Again, for the centrally designed projects, 9,432 crores were earmarked, out of which just 67% was spent. These are all unpardonable things. So, the main problem with the state is the unspent money. So, why is the state government unable to spend money after earmarking it budget? So, does it questions the credibility of the budget? Yes. The answer is definitely yes. And why the state government fails to act on it? It is for the state government to answer. Now, again, let us look at the goals set by state government itself regarding tax collections. The tax collection goals have not been met by the government. For example, when GST was introduced, the expectation was the tax collections will go up by 30%. But in reality, it rose only by 10%. So there is a huge loss for the state government. The opposition points out that while this year the state government has not met its goals, so around there was a shortfall of around 30,000 crores in tax collection. This is a uh, huge drawback. So why the state government fails to uh, meet the goals? This is because of the lethargic attitude of the bureaucracy. This could be one thing. And the second aspect could be corruption, because the government is not able to collect the targets, because they are unable to take strict actions against those who evade taxes. Why they are unable? This is because this points at a possible nexus between government officials, political leaders, and those who evade taxes. So finally, ultimately, the state's revenues suffer. At the same time, the expenditure is rising. The expenditure is not capital expenditure. It is actually revenue expenditure, salary, then pension, then payment, so many other items for revenue expenditure. So the reality is the the money which the state spends for as capital expenditure is very less compared to what the union government spends as capital expenditure. For example, this budget has is set to set to have increased considerably the money earmarked for capital expenditure. However, still it is less than 15,000 crore. So, as a percentage of the total expenditure, it is just below 10% of the total expenditure. Look at the amount spent or earmarked in this year's union budget for capital expenditure. This is 19, almost more than 19% of the total expenditure of India. So that is very clear. Kerala government is not spending enough for capital expenditure, and a major part of the expenditure is revenue expenditure. This is not at all a good thing for the state. So the major aspect or the fact is, taking debt in itself is not a great sin. However, how you spend is the important thing, and spending it on unproductive purposes is a sin, and that is what we are doing. So this is what the numbers say. Then there is another aspect of opposition criticism, which is Kerala Infrastructure Investment Fund Board, KIFBI, and how it is sanctioning projects without having money in itself. Okay, the KIFBI may not have be may not be working up to the expectations, but at the same time, the KIFBI is not a bad idea. However, uh, if there are mistakes in the functioning, or there are discrepancies in the functioning of KIFBI, that needs to be corrected. We will discuss in detail about KIFBI in the next video. Till then, goodbye and namaskaram.